Nice to have you on.
Thanks. Good to see you. And been a minute since I was in Iceland. 3 years, which is unusual for me. I don't think I've had a break of 3 years in 30 years.
Really?
Yeah. I came almost every year, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year for many years. And so I missed you, Icelanders.
We've met quite a few times in the past, but what is it that has been drawing you towards Iceland throughout all these years?
Well, I love cold. I love the cold dipping. I love swimming in cold water. I also like the hot springs too. But I just love the culture is oriented towards cold dipping and swimming in the cold water and the power of cold to rejuvenate. And so that's one thing. Another thing is that it's such a pure volcanic place. So it reminds me of Hawaii. You know, we call Iceland an Arctic Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been to Hawaii, but it seems like in some ways it has similarities.
Very similar. You know, we have the same types of volcanic formations. When I drive from Keflavik to Reykjavik, we look out and we see the pahoihoi. You know, that's what we call it in Hawaii, but which is apparently like a real term that they use in geology for the smooth lava. And then the a'a is like the real difficult to traverse, pointed, very sharp lava that appears in other places. We call that the a'a, and it's the same. The geology is the same, and they call it the same, actually. I was talking to an Icelander, and he's like, yeah, we use those same geological terms. They originate in Hawaii, but they are here. And so between Iceland and the big island of Hawaii in particular, we have an unusual similarity. So it reminds me of home, because I do live in Hawaii.
Okay. Let's dive into. We had a dinner last Friday night at our friend Sola's place. By the way, she makes great food.
She's the best.
She's amazing. She's been on my podcast once. But we were gonna dive a bit into I would like to start by since COVID, this word conspiracy and conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah,
it's changed a lot, because I feel like a lot of people are way more open now to things that were considered conspiracy theories than before. How is your estimation of how COVID has, or the COVID period has changed things?
You nailed it, actually. It changed things a lot. People realized that authority figures were lying to them, like Dr. Fauci. He was lying. His team, Peter Daszak, and other people on that team, they knew what they were up to. They were involved in gain-of-function weaponry. That's what it is. It's a weapon. And this is, very dangerous stuff, and they lied about it, and they tried to cover it up, and it just keeps coming up. So this is what I think opened people up. I think it's that people realized that these scientists were lying to us. They were doing things that were very dangerous. One of those things got out and caused a crisis in the world. And my God, there's other things out there that have done that too now as we look back. For example, we have a big prevalence of tick diseases in America. So I dug into that because I dealt with that. So many people came to me with Lyme's disease over the years.
Really?
Think about this, Sylvie. By the time someone gets to me, I am the son of 2 medical doctors. I did not become a doctor. I became a nutritionist. But by the time somebody has to have their belief system broken down enough to come to me, you know what I mean? They've been through hell. They've been through hell. And so with Lyme's disease, people have really been through all the antibiotics, all the medical treatments, being told that it's all in their head. They've been through all of it. And so eventually they end up in my door. And so I have to really know what I'm talking about. I really have to know how to treat these people and help them. Because if they get to me, I have to have the right answers. So I researched it. And sure enough, this was all conspiracy theory, but it's all been proven real. It was Dr. Erich Traub, who was an Operation Paperclip Nazi. He was brought over from Inselreims, Germany, which was the biological weapons division of the Third Reich. He was running around in Berlin. They knew he was there. The Soviets knew he was there. The Americans knew he was there. The French knew he was there. The British knew he was there. And for 4 years, he ran around Berlin, and then eventually he surrendered to the Americans. The Americans, instead of, putting this guy in jail, they put this guy at the head of the Plum Island Biological Weapons Research Lab. And I read the documents, and I looked at what he was specialized in, and guess what it was? Gain of function of tick diseases. Facts. When I read that, my heart sank. When I read the redacted U.S. Army documents that showed that he was doing gain of function research on tick diseases, that really hit me hard. And that's that. From there, I am a conspiracy theorist because I've had the evidence shown to me, but that one really hit me. That was like a blow below the belt.
Is it related? I've seen a bit of things going on social media about something from Bill Gates related to
that's alpha-gal syndrome. So that's another tick disease, which probably also is a gain of function weapon. So let's just talk about what gain of function actually is. Gain of function is breeding. So for example, if we do gain of function on tomatoes, we can breed bigger tomatoes or smaller or tougher or tastier. That's gain of function. That's just gain of function is a fancy way of making a tick disease more virulent or some other disease. It could be a respiratory pathogen more virulent. So what gain of function really means is breeding more and more tougher, more difficult to deal with types of diseases. And that's really a terrible thing if you think about it, because people say, well, Lyme's disease existed before. It did, but not the gain of function version, not the genetically bred version that escaped from Plum Island.
The thing that comes to mind when you think about these things is like is there some like dark energy behind this? What the hell is this?
See, that's the thing. See, you're right on it. You are on it. See, this is the thing that our whole civilization suffers from, is we cannot believe how evil this really is. We cannot believe, like, why would people be working on breeding a very, very dangerous tick disease or, an alpha-gal disease, which causes you to have allergies to certain types of foods and red meat and things like that. And the answer is because there's evil in the world. And so every conspiracy theorist had to kind of come to grips with that, that there's evil in the world and it's very dark. And
like you said, you used earlier the word belief system, and the belief system has to be broken down. And I feel like that's been happening now for more and more people. Like,
yeah,
it's a big pill to swallow. Like, for example, in the COVID period, to feel like democracies and stuff like that. And it's like, in the end, everybody did what the World Health Organization was suggesting. And it's like almost all the governments in the Western world didn't have any, how should I put it? Like they didn't decide for themselves.
Right.
Because the World Health Organization decided for everybody except for Sweden. I think Sweden was the only country that did it differently, and they got a lot of heat for it.
They did.
So it's just so hard to swallow a pill that there are like really powerful people with a lot of money who are tinkering something like this.
I mean, that's it.
Of course, most of us don't want to believe it.
That's why they're able to get away with it. You're exactly right. It's why they're able to get away with it, because we're too innocent. We were innocent and we've been taken by surprise. And so we're realizing, wow, these people lied and they did very dangerous gain of function breeding of diseases, many different types of diseases. We're just touching the surface with alpha-gal and Lyme's disease and corona pathogens, things like that. It's much deeper than that. So this brings us to a really interesting step forward, which is this is developing. Unfortunately, it's developing a great distrust in the systems. And so, for me, I'm from two medical doctors. So I knew when I was a kid.
Your parents?
My parents, yeah. My parents are medical doctors. I knew from when I was a child. I remember my brother having a conversation with my dad about wearing masks in surgical settings. This is when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And my dad knew back then that basically the mask in a surgical setting is not really necessary. It doesn't really, it's more of a just symbolic thing. Of course, you don't want any of your spit going into, open wounds. So that would be the reason why you wear a mask. But other than that, masks have never been proven to be that important in surgical settings. And my dad was telling us that in the late 1970s. So when this whole mask thing happened, I went back to the research that had been done on masks, and sure enough, he was right. It basically has made no difference to wear the mask or not, but there is a problem of continuing to wear the same mask, which is you're breathing in your own bacteria back into your lungs, which is terrible. So,
and what I thought, like this whole mask thing
It was crazy.
Because what I thought, like, okay, you were supposed to use each mask one time and do it like a surgeon would do it. But I'm like, what people were doing is you're using the same mask again and again and again. You're putting your fingers on it. The fingers have been wherever. Like, if anything, this is of course going to make things worse.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. And so, I asked my dad about this, and he's like, the most important thing for a surgeon is washing your hands. That is by far the most important thing. This touching the mask and all the bacteria and pathogens and everything on it is just the worst.
I mean, even in a surgical setting, there's usually somebody else who is putting the mask on the doctor.
Right. That's right. Exactly. And they change it because, again, if you're in a long surgery, like 8.5 hours, you've accumulated quite a bit of bacteria. And that's all been researched, by the way. Mm-hmm. How much bacteria, what the bacterial load is in the mask, how much protection is actually provided. It's been researched for decades. Mm-hmm. And so I would put out, during the COVID times, I was putting out that research. We created an infographic that had all the studies on it, and then, put a link so we could take them to the studies and all that. Oh, man, did I get heat for that. I mean, I almost got banned off social media for that.
That was what I was going to ask you next. Like, when I mean, I know you well enough to know you're really outspoken and you just do whatever you want. But even when you come on an interview and you start to talk about Fauci, you start to talk about and we talk about all this evil. Like, you have a decently big social media reach.
Yes.
Is there no part of you who thinks, okay, at what point am I big enough that this evil energy is gonna try to do something to me?
Oh, no, they've come after me. They deleted my YouTube page. They deleted my Pinterest page. They heavily controlled my Twitter page for about 10 years until Elon Musk bought that company. That was an eye-opening thing, is they would bot troll attack my account. They would throttle my account down. They would remove followers. I mean, every single thing that you could think of, they did to me on Twitter, the old Twitter. But I told my friends and my family, I said, because they were like, why do you stay on that platform? They kept me at 90,000 people on that platform. No matter what I did, they would never allow it. If it went up 4,000, they'd remove them. Mm-hmm. And it would go back down. It was just like that for years, like 10 years. And I said, maybe one day some billionaire will buy this platform. That's what I said. Somehow I felt that.
Did it change a lot when he came?
Oh, it changed radically. I mean, what happened to my account was a miracle. It was a miracle, Sylvia. I swear. This was something I was like, I worked so hard on that account for so many years, and it was like battling a brick wall. And then as soon as Elon Musk took over that platform, all of the shadow banning, the remover of followers, the bot troll attacks, and all these things that go on just went away. And so now I probably, at this point, I've probably 4 or 5 folded my following in just, when did he take over? Was it 2020?
Yeah, 2023,
23,
24?
20, somewhere in there. So just in 3 years, I've 4 folded at least maybe 5 folded my account in terms of following.
But is it all social media platforms? What about Instagram and Facebook? Instagram
and Facebook have finally started coming around. Yeah, I was basically throttled back where they wouldn't let my accounts grow. I survived, which is a miracle because I have a big following on Facebook, over 11 million people and almost 400 and somewhere around 450,000 on Instagram, but it had been stopped. They had stopped me for many years, but now it seems to be they've eased off of that, especially in the last month. In the last month, things have grown. I've been like, wow, these are big changes. So I'm really happy about that because nothing that hurts you more than putting all this effort into social media and then they just remove your posts or they, they tell you do one more mistake, we're going to delete you off this platform or, those things. Mm-hmm. You go to Facebook jail.
I'm just thinking now about this, like, even when you mention Elon Musk, like because it's been a journey for me. You mentioned, I think it's a good thing to talk about, like, what was the word you used for, like, people have to, when they come to you, their not their worldview.
Yeah, their belief system has to be broken down.
Yeah, if it's a belief system or a worldview, it's like, if you're open enough, you're willing to allow your belief system to be broken again and again.
Yeah, right.
To go deeper and deeper into trying to understand things. But a lot of people, if they're not super unhappy, super unhealthy, if things are decent in their life, you just rigidly hold on to your belief system as long as you possibly can.
Well said.
But I think what's going on now is our belief system are slowly being broken no matter if you want it or not. It's like the curtains are being...
Yeah, it's
Toto's
opened. Pulling back the curtain, and we're seeing the wizard behind it all.
So when you mention Elon Musk, like I've always had a feeling like when he took over Twitter, like, okay, there's something really good about him, but you're always on alert, like even with Trump.
For sure.
What happens, there was a time and period when I was like, wow, when this moment happened that he was almost shot, I felt like we narrowly escaped another timeline that would have been bad. It would have been bad because I think the other side, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they were about to take more control of people's lives as we saw in COVID and things like that. So I thought, okay, even if Trump can be irrational, he has his strange temper, all of that, it's still like he is, in some way, he is a man of freedom. But now with the wars, you're just like, what the hell happened? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. He's old. He's old, and he got sucked in. He got tricked. And I think everybody around him knows that. He got pulled into a situation he should have never gotten pulled into. And it's because the Israeli lobby and the war machine that's going on in the Middle East controls a lot of America and American politics and controls Trump. And unfortunately, he got sucked into it. Now he's trying to get out of it.
But if they control him, like he was so adamant on not starting any wars.
Oh my God.
And it sounded like, okay, there was a time and period where I was just like, he shouldn't have gotten there when he was the president, because all of the presidents are like, maybe except John F. Kennedy. It seems like John F. Kennedy was really trying to change things.
He was the last real freedom president.
After that, it seems like they've more or less all been puppies until Trump. There was like, whoa, he seems like a disruptor. Something new is going on here. And it's so I don't know what happened just in the recent months.
Yeah, basically he's old and I think he got lulled into a bad situation. He should not have fallen for it. He should have resisted getting into a crisis with Iran. Iran is not a easy nation to deal with, and they're very powerful, and they obviously have a lot of weapons, and they shouldn't have gotten involved at this level. So I think I agree with most what other Americans are thinking. I'm very disappointed. We need a lot of help in our own country. We need a lot of help with our own roads, our own schools, our own economy, our own, the problems that have developed from the Corona days. There's quite a lot of problems. I mean, if you think about so many doctors were silent, so many people were censored, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people were removed from social media platforms, which means, like for me, social media platforms is a big part of my business, right? It's like that's my outreach into the world. So, from the Corona days, I realized I cannot stay on just one platform. They could delete me on one platform. I have to have 3 others over here that they can't delete me on. That's what got me on Telegram, actually, was that kind of thinking. I was like, I got to go somewhere where they can't delete me and build a following there.
There was a time in the COVID period when people were going to Telegram and also Rumble.
Yes,
a lot of people were going into Rumble. I remember that now. But it seems like at least some of these platforms, the pendulum has swung a little bit again in the other direction. They're becoming better. It seems like.
It seems that way. It could change. And I tell people that. It's like, you got to be careful. And again, if you're into social media, my strong recommendation is have a presence on Rumble, have a presence on YouTube, have a presence on Instagram, have a presence on Facebook, have a presence on Telegram, have a presence on Twitter. You need all.
Yeah.
And that we learned this lesson from the COVID days. Because it could swing back. But, we shall see. The thing that I am happy about now is that we were able to adapt with the times. We were able to get on multiple platforms, and we have good followings on many platforms now. So I feel really good about just that ability to adapt, and I feel really confident in my team, and we survived. We survived, man.
What about taking it one level deeper? If you think about COVID, on the surface, it's just like tyranny, fascism, censorship. But if you go one layer deeper and you think COVID was actually a blessing because it's awakening so many people.
I am absolutely.
And talking about like the truth coming out, there's never been a period in my life where it's like, okay, if you want to see, like it's kind of obvious now.
I can tell you.
In the end, it is a blessing in that way.
You become very sophisticated in your podcasting days. You are nailing it. I mean, that's the thing. Is like this is my. I grew up as a reader. I was told by my teachers when I was very young that if you want to be a leader, you need to be a reader. And this is way before the internet. This is back in the 1980s. And so I started reading every book in my house. I literally read thousands of books. I talked to the people that I knew that were the smartest people I knew, and I started talking to them about they're doing something different than me. What are they doing that's different from me? Turned out both these two guys were reading 3 books a day. And so I thought, I'm going to read 3 books a day. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to be a reader. Every time I walk, I'll be, walking the streets in New York City, I'll be reading a book. Every time I would be seen, I'd be reading a book. If I'm in an elevator, I'd open a book up and read a paragraph. This is long before phones and everything else. Eventually, I ran into Rudolf Steiner's work. Rudolf Steiner was the great Austrian philosopher and clairvoyant and just the creator of most of the food quality systems that still survive in Europe today, including biodynamic farming and so many other things. He left behind 1 million pages of material, which is an incredible achievement, shocking achievement. And it was Rudolf Steiner that really clued me into the ideas that, basically that I've been watching for now 30 years that came to light in the COVID era. And what Rudolf Steiner said, he said, in the 21st century, it will be evil that will wake people up. He said, and that will continue on. He said, there's nothing going to wake people up more than just being faced with evil. Mm-hmm. And I just thought about that. I watched it and I was like, wow, look at what's happening. And the evil, the tyranny, the fascism, the control, the mask, we called it the masquerade. Everybody running around with a mask and all the things. It woke everybody up.
Yeah, because it became like a Eastern Europe Stasi kind of thing. Like all of a sudden, I remember I was taking I think it was a domestic flight within Colombia, and I was about to take my mask down and drink water, and all of a sudden the guy that's working in the cabin, he says, "No, you can't drink water," and I'm like, you don't have the authority to tell me if I drink water or not. And he said, these are the rules. And I debated him a little bit until the guy in the next row says, well, he is right. He can drink water if he wants to. You cannot. And he ended up caving in. But it's just like, it's so dangerous when normal people who might hate their job or whatever, all of a sudden for a moment, they can control your life. And they really enjoy it. I studied psychology, and in social psychology, there's a lot of studies about showing how people with certain characteristics, given the chance controlling other people, they will enjoy it and they will do really bad things. And that's what scared me also, was like regular people were becoming police officers. They were calling in, hey, this guy there's like you cannot be with more than 10 people. There are 12 people at his party. That person is not wearing a mask, and they are calling the authorities, and they're yeah.
This I grew up with people who grew up in Cuba and survived Fidel Castro. Mm-hmm. You couldn't believe what the stories were there. I mean, like a good friend of mine's mom, who I've spoken to many times about this particular thing, she was in Cuba for 2 years, I think from the age of 14 until 16 when Fidel took over. And they put a person at the end of every street, and that person would make sure that nobody on any house had any more food than anybody else, and that nobody in any house was saying anything about Fidel Castro that could have been negative or in any way seemed like it was something that was revolutionary or somehow overthrowing Fidel Castro. They would, if they've caught somebody saying something or hiding food or something like that, that person would disappear. Luckily, in her case, her father flew her to Mexico City, and from Mexico City to New York, and she escaped Fidel Castro. But she never forgot those things. Those things that we're talking about, where somebody's sitting at the end of your street are now sitting at the end of another side of the internet. They're spying, the surveillance on the internet. So these same habits of humanity, empowering people who are, we call them control freaks, right? They're given the chance to control somebody, they're going to control somebody, or given the chance to enforce some law, they're going to enforce some law. we have not matured as a society or civilization enough to trust the surveillance state. In fact, what I suspect is if we have more surveillance on the internet, for example, it's going to revert back into that Fidel Castro type of situation where people are going to be spied on, they're going to disappear. And so more than ever, we have to fight for our freedom. And more than ever, more of that freedom is coming as digital freedom, actually.
Yeah, what is a digital freedom to you? Is it just like freedom to express your opinions online?
Yep. It's first, it's freedom of speech. It's the ability to so this whole thing about like hate speech. I grew up in America. That hate speech is an infringement of the First Amendment. It is, even though it's like, if somebody could say very hateful things about me, so what? I have to be tough enough to accept it. That's freedom of speech. And so this is the thing, is that they've been these kinds of control freak kind of people who want to control other people. They've been infringing slowly but surely and legally through the judicial system, primarily freedom of speech.
I don't remember the number, but the number of people who have been arrested in the UK for saying things online, it is ridiculous.
It's over 12,000.
It is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And some of the things they've been saying are very innocent.
Right. Yeah, it's not problematic at all.
No.
It's really bad in France. I've been tuning in on a woman in France who was raped by a migrant, and she's speaking up about it. And then she was the one they were trying to throw her in jail. I'm like, geez, what kind of craziness is this? But this is kind of Soviet communism or socialism, which is really, it's a disturbed part of a human being that needs repair, right? It's like, why do you need to control other people? Why do you care so much about words?
But how would you elaborate on this thought of mine that to get into power in the system as it is, you have to have certain characteristic traits that are not good. You cannot get into being a prime minister unless you kind of have to get rid of a lot of empathy. You have to have characteristics that are not good. So in the end, we are stuck in a system where the people on top, a good case scenario is we say they're traumatic.
Yeah.
A bad case scenario, we say they're evil.
Yes.
But anyhow, they are basically projecting their trauma or whatever it is on millions of people.
You're on top of it. Frank Herbert, who wrote the Dune books. You remember Dune and Dune Messiah and Children of Dune? Do you remember those famous sci-fi books? He had a great phrase. He said that power attracts pathological personalities. Now, this must be the first thing considered in developing future systems of governance, is that power attracts people who are corrupt, people who are criminals. And so we have to figure out a system, and I know we're smart enough to do it. We can figure out a system where we automatically exclude people like that from ever getting into power.
Because the leaders we would like is, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. You think about somebody like Abraham Lincoln or whatever. It's like a thoughtful person who other people want to be in power, but they are not even sure they are the right people for it.
That's the best type of leader.
And that's exactly the people we need.
This is what Plato said. This is exactly what Plato said. But the people we get are people who from a young age are aspiring to have power over other people, and they're power hungry, and they love power. Totally. And that's precisely what we don't want. This is precisely the problem that Plato laid out over 2,000 years ago in his Republic and other discourses, is that you do have this intrinsic problem. And so he said the ideal form of government is an enlightened monarchy, which is kind of how all governments really begin. And then it just turns to corruption and disaster. And all of a sudden, the person who's in power, let's say, the king, in mythological ancient times, it was King Arthur who loved the people and supported the people and was a friend of the people. And this seems to be the beginning of civilizations and societies. And then it corrodes down, this is according to Plato, into rule of the mob, which is quote unquote democracy, but he calls it plutocracy, which is the rule of money. So the hidden hand of money is actually really what's behind, quote unquote, democracy. And so this then leads to the worst people getting into power. This is what Plato said 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, I was sitting here yesterday with the foreign minister of Iceland, which is a woman that I've known for quite some time. I've interviewed her repeatedly over the last 15, 20 years. She's been forefront in the politics. And I asked her, like, my gut feeling is that a lot of people in politics are not bad people, but they have, in the current era, especially now with social media and stuff, you have option A, which is bad for you as a politician now, but really good for the country and the people. And you have option B, that's good for you in the moment, but you know it's bad. I feel like almost every politician chooses option B.
You nailed it again, man. You're right on top of it. That's precisely what's happening. And it's set up that way. In some way, these forces have set it up that way. You know, there was a book written by James Cerrucci called The Eaters of Children. And he talks about how the Catholic Church has created gateways so that you can't get to a certain level of fame or fortune or power, political power, business power, unless you do things that system wants you to do.
Exactly.
You know, cheat somebody, steal from somebody, kill somebody, ruin somebody's life, something. And so this is almost, you know, you see this because this is another thing that came to light, especially over the last 10 years, and especially with the Epstein files, is blackmail. They got blackmail on so many of these people, so many politicians, so many business leaders.
Exactly.
And what a crazy thing. So that gave rise to that great book, One Nation Under Blackmail. I'm trying to think of that woman's, Whitney Webb. She's a famous, I think she doesn't live in the United States anymore. She's an American originally, but she wrote two or three part volume. I think it's a 2-part volume called what's the name of that? The One Nation Under Blackmail, Part 1 and Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, when you get into that, it's just deep. You know, so the politician is stuck in a situation. Well, if I do this, they're gonna show my wife that I've been cheating on her, or they're gonna show, you know, some terrible video that's out there that they have of me or something.
I realized this shortly after the financial collapse in Iceland. Or in the world, and Iceland was one of the first countries to be hit really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And I had really good connections here, and at the time I was in the news, and I got laid off, and I feel like I got laid off because I was saying too many of the true things. But I remember there were a lot of people who were coming to me and giving me information after it, and I realized like how the system is set up. Like in Iceland, the pension funds are the owners of the biggest money in Iceland. Like the money of the pension funds in Iceland is like 3 times the GDP.
Wow.
They own in all of the companies. Their hand is all over the economy in Iceland. So the guys that are running the pension funds are basically among the most powerful people here. Mm-hmm. I knew there was a guy who came to me and he was like, do you want to know how this works? And they had these, like the guys who were owning the banks, they had these yachts somewhere in Miami or Florida or something. We took the pension fund guys there and everything was paid for them, like 5-star hotels, luxury, stuff like that. And then, I mean, there's these Icelandic guys, it's dark, it's winter, all of a sudden you're in a tropical climate, you're on a beautiful yacht, there's cocaine there. There are beautiful escorts there. There's a lot of stuff. And at the end of the trip, maybe they have a sneaky feeling somebody might have been taking pictures or even videos. And a week later, the bank is calling the pension fund. So you're going to invest in our bank, right? What's your answer going to be?
Wow. Right. Yeah, that's how they get you, right? Like, they got the blackmail. Exactly. And then what they're telling you is like, hey, you want to keep the party going? You're just going to do what we say. You know, we vote this way, do this, and then you'll have a great life and you'll have your escorts and your cocaine or whatever the drugs are, your alcohol or whatever the thing is. It's crazy. But this is, you know, so then let's talk about the other side. This is in counterbalance to what's happening with the internet, which is the truth.
Exactly.
So the truth is coming out at lightning speed now. So this is balancing all that stuff off. What they were used to getting away with now is being exposed very fast. So what used to happen, you know, maybe it was 6 years or 60 years, now is happening in 6 weeks or 6 hours. Yeah. People are immediately finding this out. So we're in this race, which is amazing. I just find this to be the most exciting time.
What about diverting people's attentions? What is the Epstein files, for example? I haven't looked really deeply into it, but I look at it and I'm like, okay, I get there is like a lot of corruption there, but is it also a way to take our attention somewhere else than it should be?
Well, I think all these dark rabbit holes, that's what the conspiracy theorists call it. We're down this rabbit hole. All these dark rabbit holes, you have to be careful. And I love what Nietzsche said, the great philosopher Nietzsche. He said, careful when you look into the abyss because it might consume you.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. It's good to know that that's going on. It's important to know there's blackmail going on, for example. It's good to know that there are people who are really disturbed, who are in power, because you need to be aware of the situation. But to dwell there is terrible for you. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of what I tell people is like, look, we're going to put out there, a little bit of what's happening out there just so we're aware of it, but we cannot dwell there because it's unhealthy. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your family environment. It's not good for anything because it's so dark.
Bit more cacao?
Sure. By the way, everybody, I love Sölva Tryggva's cacao here. He's done a great job. Thank you.
Even better with your chaga.
We got some chaga tincture.
Should
I brought
have a little
from
bit more
Greece.
of it.
Russian chaga mixed into a Greek organic brandy by a friend of mine. Quite good.
Should I take one more hit of the
Absolutely.
Of the chaga?
Yeah. That's for us.
Okay, but continue where we were.
So what we want to do is we want to focus on what's good in the world that's happening right now. And I'm telling you, I've never seen so much great stuff happening. It is incredible what is happening right now.
Yeah.
For example, I have a well at my house that is an old well. My house used to be an old ski resort. So they were using that particular well, it's kind of down the hill, to blow snow, on the runs. And we looked into the well. It's like an artesian well, it's like a cylinder that goes into the earth about 5 meters or something, and it had so much good, healthy, clean, beautiful, clear water in it. And I was like, my God, okay, we got to get this thing, I got to get a pumping system on this thing because down in that area of the yard, it's, because it's downhill a little bit, that's where we're going to have our sweat lodge, and we're going to have our Native American church meeting. So we're going to have our teepee and all the fun stuff we like to do, bring in our Native American friends and stuff. And, I go on Instagram and I can just see videos of exactly what I can do. It shows me exactly what kind of systems to get. It shows me exactly what's out there. I look this stuff up. It's very inexpensive. I'm like, gee, it's like $100. I could create a really good system there. And so this is like the good side of what's happening. We're able to utilize the resources we have. Let's say you only have a small yard. Well, no problem. We'll get the right plants in there. We'll get the food plants in there for this climate. Let's say you're in Iceland, you have a small yard. We'll get haskap berries in there. We'll get a couple apple trees in there. There's so many things you could do. And we know exactly what varieties to get. We know exactly, I could ask an AI, which variety should I get for this exact climate in this exact location in Reykjavik? Like that, it's going to tell me. It's just amazing to me. So I try to dwell there mostly.
Yeah.
And I'm always a person of action. So it's like, it's good to know about things, but it's also very important to take action.
So it's interesting what you say now, because I've thought a lot about where does the line lie. Whatever you put your attention on grows.
Yep.
Where does the line lie? That's why I haven't really looked a lot into the Epstein files, because it's like whenever I go into these, let's call it dark things and bad things that might be going on, I go in there, I research it a little bit, but then I have to go out of it because otherwise and that's what I see about in a lot of people who are like quote unquote conspiracy theorists. It's a slippery slope where you're all of a sudden talking about all the negative things and you don't even notice that your psyche has just gone down, your frequency has gone down.
Yeah.
So where does the line lie for you in being aware of these things, researching these things, knowing these things, but then jumping into being grateful, seeing the beautiful things in life, seeing the positive things, seeing the good things that are going on?
I think the 80-20 rule is what rules that. You got to know, like, for example, I need to know about Lyme's disease. I need to know about the history. I need to know how it works. It's dark. I don't want, I need to know how parasites work. That's not fun. It's not fun to look at that, but I have to know that because I need to be able to help people. And so I'm going to spend 20% of my time understanding the parasite life cycle, how a spirochete works, and these different things that are they're ugly. It's not fun to look at. I'm going to spend 80% of my time studying what to do about it. What are the tools? Because, for example, if I come to you, Sylvia, and I say, here's what you can do, you might only actually be able to do maybe 5 or 6 things out of 20 things that I'm laying out for you. But if I only knew 5 or 6 things, I would probably not have the right choices for you, or I'd only have a couple things that would be useful to you. So I have to spend a lot of time on looking at all the options, and then I have to go to the person and say, are you the type of person who actually are you like a disciplined person? And you'd say, yeah, every day I get up and I brush my teeth, and every day I go for my run, and every day I go for my sauna, and every day I do my cold dipping. And if you're that type of person, I'd be like, okay, this is how we're going to approach this.
Yeah.
If you're not that type of person, I have to use other tools, right? I have to, for example, maybe get someone to come over here and be like, hey, we're going to the gym. Let's go. Something like that.
Yeah.
So that to me is why we have to spend more time on the solution than what the problem is. And by the way, this is what you were saying earlier. The solution is bringing us to a higher place than we were before. So this is the silver lining on the crises of our time. What's his name? Klaus Schwab calls it polycrises. Polycrises. That's just some made up thing that they're just going to keep throwing so much crap at us that, we have to just keep coming up with better and better and better solutions. And ultimately, it will lead us to a much higher place than we've ever been before, which is great. Mm-hmm. And so I look at it and I see evil as a way. This is also a Rudolf Steiner concept. Evil is a way of just saying, hey, you're going the wrong way. Go that way. You're driving down the road. You want to stay in the middle of that road. If you're starting to hit the left side, that's kind of evil. You got to get back in the middle. Mm-hmm. If you're starting to hit the right side, you got to get back in the middle. Mm-hmm. And so what I love about what Steiner brings to us is it's Aristotelian. It's like Aristotle's teaching of the golden mean. So evil is an extreme on either side, and you have to find a balance in the middle. That's the teachings of Aristotle. Remember, Aristotle said, courage is like you don't want to be like in folly. Like you're not just going to jump off the roof. That's not very smart. But you don't want to be so timid that you can't take action.
Exactly.
Courage is in the middle.
Exactly. Where does it, what I'm thinking about, a normal person without bashing anybody isn't very brave in the modern era. I mean, it's just I go again to social psychology. I studied psychology, and it's just we were always so flabbergasted by the Nazi era. And we're like, wow, how could that have happened? How could that have happened? But everything shows we are the same human beings.
Totally. And that's a real, I love that you brought that up because everyone sees it now.
Yeah, because it's everybody wants to believe, maybe the studies show 95% of people just follow the mass. And especially if there's a threat that something might happen to you, you do evil things rather than being brave. That's 95% of people, and 5% of people are actually brave. I mean, I'm just using some number, but it's somewhere in the vicinity of maybe 2 to 7% or something.
Right, yes.
So when you ask a person, usually you would like to say, I would be the person who would have kept a Jew in my basement, and I would have, and then there's COVID, everybody goes for the vaccines, then there's this cancel culture thing where it happened to me basically, and everybody tells you, I see what kind of a bullshit it is, but I would never say it publicly. And you're like, wow. Is this really where we're at?
That's where we're at. It's crazy, I know. So where's it going? I mean, what we're going to see, it's going to get more extreme. Mm-hmm. It's going to get more extreme. I mean, all evidence shows that. There's going to be more and more sinister activity on the surveillance state side, people spying on everybody. But then there's going to be more and more freedom possible than we've ever known or ever even imagined. It's getting, it is incredible.
But how is it going to look like? Do you envision that it's going to be some sort of a split?
Yes.
Like in COVID, there were a few countries that became like a refuge for people to go to because the borders were just open. They didn't have strict rules. So a lot of people were flooding to Mexico. Actually, Zanzibar was a place where a lot of people moved to because it was like, yeah, there's no COVID here.
Yeah, I totally see that. I see it's going to be places. There will be places where there's going to be more freedom and freedom is going to be respected. Mexico is one of those places. And the reason why Mexico is like that is because I grew up on the Mexican border. So I know Mexicans. I love Mexicans. I grew up on Mexican food. You know, to me, the Mexicans are an amazing race of people. And one thing that they have in their culture is they do not have a monopoly on government in that country, which means that there are cartels that are so powerful that they're as powerful as the government.
Even more powerful.
Even more powerful.
Yeah.
So they're not going to go with I grew up with Mexican gangsters. You know, at least they have honor and respect. You know what I mean? It's like I can respect their position. When it comes to the government, a lot of times I don't respect their position. It doesn't make any sense. They're ripping us off. They're doing this and that. At least when I go to Mexican gangsters, at least they have honor.
Yeah, and there's also just honest business going on. So I was told there was I went to show my documentary in Mexico City, and I got to have a lunch and a day with one of the biggest sports writers in Mexico. And I asked him a little bit, and he said, like, unfortunately, the drug business is, like, by far the biggest industry here. But then, like, in COVID, when I went to Mexico, I was also being told, like, yeah, the reason why there are no rules here is because who do you think runs the tourist industry? And do you think they're going to allow the government to stop the tourism? Not a chance.
That's so it. That is so it. And so that, you know, people who are not familiar with Mexican society, they go, oh yeah, those evil cartels. But when you're familiar with Mexican society, you're like, thank God for the cartels, because they keep the tyranny at bay. They hold it back because they want people to come and have fun and make money. And so then you think about drugs. Okay, so then these people are on drugs. How are we going to get out of this situation to begin with? We have to create better people. We have to create people who don't want the drugs.
Exactly.
So this is also true with our government. How are we going to create a better government? We need to create better people.
I agree. Like if you talk about the drug problems, like there's always going to be a supply.
Right. That's it.
But if you grow up kids who are going to stop the demand, that's the only way.
It's the only way.
It's the only way.
It's the only way. And, you know, we're old enough now. I've seen many generations. Like when I was a kid, my God, the drugs. Like I was in San Diego, California on the Mexican border. The CIA was controlling methamphetamines coming into eastern San Diego. Everybody in eastern San Diego was on methamphetamines. Everybody I knew. I had to make a choice when I was 14 years old that I'm not going to touch that stuff because it's synthetic, or it's actually a semi-synthetic. Yeah. But just think about how crazy that is. A 14-year-old kid has to make a choice like that. I was like, look, I'll stick with stuff that's natural, but that stuff is unnatural. I'm not going to do it. And these are the kind of things that as I've seen over time, kids have become much smarter about it. They've actually realized this is dangerous, because back then we didn't know how dangerous it really was.
Yeah, and I mean, if we are having things now like fentanyl and stuff, which is just like
kill you.
One pill can kill a teenager, and if you are aware of that, then like early on, you're going to be like, okay, like if you come from good parents who educate you about this, you're going to be like, I can't just take anything. It's not a chance. This
is the thing, and that's why I always, when I'm talking to kids, you know, because they'll ask me, what about this drug or that drug? I'm like, look, that did not come from nature. You don't know where that came from. Where did that cocaine come from? Who knows what labs? Who knows what chemicals are on it? Who knows what contaminants are in it? You can't touch that stuff. And then, you know, they asked me about video games too. They're like, what do you think about video games? Because every kid loves their video games. And I said, there will come a time in your life when you do not ever want to be looking at a screen if you don't have to. And that really hits them differently, because every adult's like, stop playing those video games. But when they hear it like that, it's like, you know, there will come a time when it hurts your eyes, when you don't want to look at a screen anymore. You'd rather look at something else, like read a book or be in nature or something like that. And I just noticed that hits kids differently when they hear it that way, like, oh, because your eyes can take it when you're 14, but when you're 54, man, is it hard on your eyes to look at screens like we have to, you know, to keep our lives running on these digital platforms.
But it's like this, I don't know if I should say yin and yang, like the polar opposites, because of the opioid addiction now in the US is severe enough that recently there was a legislation about ibogaine.
Right.
It came from Joe Rogan and the guys who were on his podcast, and they messaged Trump, and Trump said, okay, let's look into it. And now they're opening up the research, and the initial research is showing that it's giving like a 80% remission or something like ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
nothing else is giving anything remotely close to it. So it's like same as with COVID, like a bad thing brings out a good thing eventually.
That's it, man. See that? So it takes us to a higher place. And then if you look at people who have studied iboga, who are really skilled at administering iboga and ibogaine, you find out that they have a really interesting perspective on what it's doing for people. Like most of these types of things, like ayahuasca, is going to take you up and out. Mm-hmm. But ibogaine, it's a root. It takes you in and down. Exactly. Takes you back into yourself, where you came from, your ancestors, who you really are, what you're here to do. So to me and my research, I think iboga and ibogaine is one of the best things that's happened to humanity. Mm-hmm. It's one of the greatest breakthroughs. Ayahuasca, again, it's a great thing and it's an interesting thing, but it takes you up and out.
Yeah.
And so therefore it can be abused for escapism, which is
exactly
very problematic. But iboga, you're not escaping with iboga.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an escapist type of thing. You're going to deal with your stuff.
What do you know the research behind, or like the thing behind iboga being possibly dangerous for the heart, and like that's why, at least for me, if I do it, I want to do it in a clinical setting?
Yeah, I think that's smart. And yes, there is evidence that it can be. People have died taking iboga, and they've died of heart attacks. People have died taking ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. It's rare. There's always a danger with every drug that you take. Cannabis, there's a lot of reports of heart attacks from cannabis, and when you get in your 60s and 70s, there's a danger always there. It's by far, by the way, the biggest danger is alcohol. Alcohol is the most dangerous drug by far of all drugs. I mean, the statistic is you take all drugs, combine them together, times 10. That's alcohol. All drugs, cocaine, everything you can think of, combine it all together, times 10, that's alcohol. We're in our little world, so we don't really realize how big the alcoholism problem really is in the world. Historically, in this country, it's been very bad.
In Iceland, yeah.
Yes, in Iceland.
Really bad. Like Iceland is we come from a very traumatic background because of the harsh living conditions.
Yeah.
And when this was a really poor country, which was not so long ago, just trying to survive the winter here in these like small huts, trying to get fish, and like the guys were putting themselves in danger going to sea in bad weather. So whenever there was a ship who came here with alcohol, people just went binge drinking.
Yeah.
And that's where we come from. There's like generational trauma from both our living conditions, and then on top of it came alcohol and alcoholism. It's just like, if there is anything that can make me forget this life a little bit, I'll just go for it.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like an escape. And it was
absolutely.
And it's the most abused substance. So, that's just part of life. There's never going to be, that's another thing, is we can never escape the dangers of living. And
True.
this is that thing that is coming up a lot, is just we're sacrificing our freedom for safety. That will never work. That never works.
Exactly. And isn't it kind of in the time that we're heading into, isn't it kind of a necessity to let go of fear and go into bravery, however that looks like? Because I'm just thinking now about, in my view, like because there are good people in government, and I don't think all of these people are ill-intentioned, but somehow we've made these systems, and the systems, in my view, have become the evil of the world in a way. And if you're going to be like in a welfare country like Iceland, if it's going to be like the good government is going to supply me with everything, and the good government is going to do this for me and that for me, and then all of a sudden the good government is going to jab me with a vaccine. And it was staggering to me to look at, I'm not judging anybody who took the COVID vaccine, but the critical thinking just told me immediately, like, okay, what about the history of the pharmaceutical companies? What about the time it takes to develop a vaccine? Like, it doesn't make sense that everybody is just lining up. But it was like 97% of the Icelandic population went there.
Crazy.
And that's because I think subconsciously, you've been conditioned to, like, the government is good, the government is out to help you, the government is this, and all of a sudden you're, like, we talked about belief systems earlier. You're not just gonna all of a sudden throw your belief system. But then I think now, if they would do it again now, the percentage would definitely not be 95% again.
Right. Yeah, this is the distrust that's been sown by abuse. They abuse their power and they abuse their position of authority. And fortunately for me, because I come from two medical doctors, I was able to see from a very young age how abusive medicine is and what other options. Like my dad, you know, my dad's done every emergency surgery you can imagine. He's saved hundreds of people's lives in emergency surgeries. He's put together people's bones that without all the pins and needles and plates and all the stuff they use today, he did it before that era, and it worked better. So I've seen medicine had been better before and has gotten worse over time. So I've been skeptical. And so I'm lucky that I was like that, because I saw, there's problems coming because of the corruption in the pharmaceutical world. They had too much power, too much money, and then they got away with completely untested vaccines and boosters and all kinds of things. They basically ran a giant experiment on the human population with there was no risk reward, real testing done. I mean, it is crazy what they did. And so now, to me, my faith in that is completely shattered. Totally. I mean, it was pretty shattered before, but now it's like, you know, now I won't even send, like, for example, I'll show you on my phone, a friend of mine cut his hand with a chainsaw. I said, come over here. Don't go to the hospital. So he basically came to my house. We had a doctor sew it up. But I basically put coated silver on the inside of the wound. Okay. So coated silver is a absolute breakthrough in medicine. It was brought to me by a doctor, but it will never make it into hospitals because that's too controlled by pharmaceuticals. So fortunately, the doctor trusted me, and he's like, okay, I'll sew it up with the silver inside, which, you know, they're trained not to do. Sewed it up. And then we treated it in a certain way with carbon, basically with the charcoal and with the carbon 60. And we treated it, and with silver too, repeatedly. So those three things: carbon 60, which is it's the most active part of the charcoal, charcoal itself, and then coated silver every morning after it was washed out. You know, just every day it was like that. In 1 month and 1 day it was completely healed. I'll show you the pictures.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Oh, you saw that already. So you know.
They were pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. And that's where the real medicine is at. I'm designed for real medicine. I'm the son of two medical doctors, and I'm a conspiracy theorist in the sense of, like, I'm not subject to any belief system. I believe that incredible healing is possible if we can just get out of our own way and get out of the propaganda, right? Because the pharmaceutical industry wants us to go with their solution. That's propaganda. There might be better solutions. And so I'm willing to look in other places that I think most people in the healing profession don't look. And that's why I was able to come across certain things that are good strategies for healing that would never make it to the mainstream hospital.
But I think, like, we are so I mean, it's a bit of a overused word, the matrix, but we are interwoven. I feel like we are interwoven into a really deep conditional matrix where, like, even doctors, I feel like if they would really get in tune with their intuition, like, okay, I did the Hippocrates oath here. Now I'm working in an institution or somewhere where I can meet a person for 15 minutes and I send them out with a pill. Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Well, that's a system problem.
Exactly.
That's a system problem.
So I think, like, there's a lot of people, but then the doctor has gotten a lot of student loans. He spent a lot of money getting his education. He is like, okay, what am I going to resign, and what's then going to happen to me? So it's very human. It's very normal human behaviors to have a little bit of fear of outcome and stuff like that. And you just turn the blind eye a little bit, and you continue to do the thing for years, even if deep down you know you're not serving your purpose. You're not doing what you set out to do.
Right. It's not the best strategy that's available. Fortunately, there are some really smart doctors out there. I mean,
Absolutely.
doctors are really,
Absolutely.
they're in as a class of people, they're very, very smart people.
Absolutely.
And so there have been quite a bit of doctors who've figured out, for example, my favorite doctor, I go see Dr. Barr in Newport Coast down in California. She's Egyptian, Egyptian American. And she knows everything about peptides, stem cells, all kinds of advanced healing technology, including ozone in the blood, purifying blood. My dad is 88, and so after all his history, and he's also took 3 of those vaccines. I told him he was gonna take the 4th one. I said, Dad, you have never listened to me in your entire life, but I'm telling you, if you take this one, you will die. And he didn't do it. It was the first time he ever listened to me in his whole life. I think he's gotten quite old. But anyway, he's had a lot of problems from the jabs, and he's had, like a lot of neurological problems because he's getting old. And so we got him with Dr. Barr. So he's getting the ozone in the blood. He's doing the peptides for cognitive health. He's doing a lot of nutrients through the blood, like magnesium sulfate, glutathione, zinc, vitamin C, B vitamins, etc. And my brother's wife called, and she talks to him every day, and she said, I got to say, he's doing better. He's doing better. And so and he's far gone, he's 88. He's if he had done things healthy, he'd easily make it to 100 healthy with his brain intact. But because he's made such terrible choices because he's so deep in medicine, we still have turned it around. That's where it's actually at. It's amazing.
You talked earlier about it is going to get, I think the words you used were more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the big picture? Because for me, I hope that it will not get too bad. But something tells me it's darkest before dawn.
Yep.
And I really feel like the good will prevail. But sometimes it has to get pretty dark before things actually turn around.
You're talking like a conspiracy theorist. This is crazy.
Well, I guess I am one now.
This is what we say. It's like what follows winter every single time. Spring.
Exactly.
Spring follows winter every time. It will get better. Could there be some dark moments coming? Yeah, probably. I think it's going to come in the form of internet surveillance and the surveillance state, kind of what's happening in the UK right now and in France, where, it's just become very, very twisted, and they're just weaponizing, they're basically, they're abusing their power. They're weaponizing speech. And it's just gone too far. I mean, for example, you talk to Mexicans, you insult a Mexican, they'll insult you back. You have fun. Nobody really cares. Yeah. It's so stupid. And so we have to get away from this hate speech stuff. Somebody wants to hate me or call me bad words. That's just that's life. Get over it. But putting people in jail for such things is crazy. And there's just nothing more dangerous than that, I think, in the world today. That's my take on it. The speech control is where all the problems begin. That's why the American founders, they were freedom of speech, First Amendment. It's the number one thing. And I gotta love that. I think they were right.
They were onto something.
They were onto something. And we see it today. So, where's it all going? I think we just have to I don't know. We got to stay out of the way of the propaganda. Don't let your children, your children's children, your family, your friends get pulled into the propaganda too much. Show them the other side of things. Do the best you can. Memes are really good. Memes are amazing, actually. Right? Just a quick infographic shows them hey, here's the studies on masks, for example, and just look them up. Look it up. Here's another option. We could do it this way. Check this out. And memes are really good at showing that. And they do it in a way that's funny. And also it's in a way that the AI algorithm can't pick up on it. Because the AI doesn't have that human sense of humor. Right? Because the human not only has a sense of humor, but also can ascribe meaning that an AI algorithm can't pick up on. So to me, I realized somewhere around December of 2014, I realized it's all going to go, our future, what's going to save us is short video and memes.
What's your take on AI?
It's good and bad. It's like any tool humans have ever used. It will be used for evil, just like money's used for evil. But money can be used for good too, and money's used for a lot of good.
Absolutely.
Right, and so this is the same with AI. My God, can it be used for good? I think overall and in general, where it's going is that there will be technologies that will be created that are more moral and ethical as we go into the future. And I think somehow that's going to show up in AI is that the fundamental core programming of AI will have to have a moral, integrous, and ethical side to itself to be something that will be allowed to go into the future, right? It has to be something that supports life, supports health, supports people, supports animals, supports plants. This AI data center thing is crazy. The whole thing. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay, so they're building like 4,000 data centers. Like China has 400. They're running basically a totalitarian regime over there. They have 400 data centers to handle all the, dissidents and people who are, using AI in ways they don't like or all that stuff. 400. They're building 4,000 in the United States of America. And they use up enormous water resources, crazy energy resources. The whole thing's insane.
What did you say these data centers are about?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know what the complete picture really is. I mean, it seems to be a control move, right? That the big tech corporations, they're trying to, it's like a power grab, that they're trying to grab resources, in particular water resources, because we have correlated that these data centers are being put into places where they're utilizing water resources where water resources are already scarce. That can't be a coincidence. So it has something to do with control of water resources and energy resources, both of those. And so to me, it looks like a power grab that they can get control of the power. Like, we get the power. You have to, maybe you're lucky if you can run your washing machine, but we're going to have all the power over here, something like that. Because, you have to think of these big tech people. They're in a new gold rush for them, which is data. Data is money. I think it's past money now. It's all about data. And so these data centers are about basically the new wealth that these people perceive is what the world needs, right? Which is, let's get more data. We need more data. It's like more money. You can never satisfy someone's greed. You're never going to be able to satisfy it.
That's what I was asking. It's hard to, I somehow feel like I have gotten downloads that the good will prevail, but it's sometimes hard to wrap your head around it if you look at where the world is now.
Right, yes.
Because you think about, I don't know, like these powerful people, like the top 1% or top 0.1%, and then the political system, which is kind of like, if you're not corrupt, if you're not willing to sacrifice your soul a bit, you're not going to get to the top. Not a chance. The way they've, even the political party system, like in the US, it's so screwed.
It's screwed
just
up.
These two parties. So I'm just like, and then I think about this word that you're using, greed. I've thought about like you talk about evil and dark, but I've also thought like a more innocent explanation would be, it's just greed, and greed is just fear. Because if you're not fearful, you wouldn't need so much for yourself.
Totally.
So I've thought about it. Is it all just about greed, which is a fear in disguise?
That's a legitimate concept, very legitimate, and sure, because to me, when I look at why does a billionaire need more money? Like, what are you you can never use all that money the rest of your life. So it stops being about money. And if somebody's a good person with money, like a good billionaire, they're doing it because they like putting people together. They like making things happen in the world. I've met people like that, and they're good people. Then there's other people who it's a bottomless pit. This greed is a bottomless pit. It's a disturbance in the person.
Exactly, and it will never go away.
It will never go away.
Unless you work on yourself enough to clear out that disturbance.
Right. So that person probably would do good with ayahuasca or iboga or something, right? So that's probably why those things are there. And we see both of those types of people, but ultimately it brings us back to this. We have to create better people. We have to raise better people so that people are healthier in their in their outlook of life. This earth is so incredibly abundant. I was taught something by one of my teachers, Paul Zane Pilzer, back over 30 years ago. Incredible concept, which is resources are controlled by technology. So, for example, let's just say we, at some point it's like we've got to get more gold. But now, what do you need all that gold for? Now it's all about data. So all of a sudden, gold becomes less important and data becomes more important because the technology changed. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So eventually, what it really comes down to in my mind is where the technology goes. And therefore, we've got to get to a moral and ethical and integrous technology. And that's precisely what Rudolf Steiner says will happen. He like this thing that you're saying, which is really important, and everyone's thinking it. How in the world are we going to get out of this? What Rudolf Steiner says is that we will develop a moral and integral and ethical technology, and that's how we're going to get out of this.
It's interesting to look. I've sometimes allowed myself to look at even these things that you're talking about, like iboga, even especially maybe the Buffo. Mm-hmm. That's now synthetic version is 5-MeO.
Yes.
It's like, are these entities that have been planted here for a reason?
100%. I'm convinced that that's true.
To develop humanity.
Yes, I'm convinced that that's true.
And is AI also, in some ways, is it also like an entity?
Is it a discovery or is it an invention? I mean, that's and I think more and more people are realizing it's a discovery. And so to me, I was like, okay, there's definitely going to be some evil entities that are going to be attracted to AI that is immoral AI that doesn't protect life, that doesn't protect humanity, that doesn't protect the earth. That type of AI that has that built into its core functionality, bad, and will attract dark entities.
Yeah.
But the integrous AI that is about, hey, how do we create a healthier environment? How do we create better usage of water? How do we create better usage of time? That will attract good.
I mean, AI can easily be used to have a more direct democracy.
100%. And just think about it. Like,
and the politicians are not talking about that.
Yeah, and also these data centers, it's like people are like, some of the big tech guys are like, well, we need these data centers to be able to figure out, the strategies for the future. Why don't you just ask your AI a way of building a data center that doesn't use all the water resources, all the energy resources? You know what I'm saying? It's so silly. It's like, obviously the AI is going to be able to figure out a way of doing it better. Like, I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a famous mathematician, Robert Edward Grant. Do you know who Robert Edward Grant is?
I feel like I've heard about the name.
He's very big in Gaia TV. He's a very smart guy, lovely guy, and I just love hanging out with him because we can talk high-level calculus and mathematics. He has a very good background in that. He's a mathematical genius, and he's designed his AI so that it doesn't use only real numbers. It uses like the square root of -1. And irrational numbers and other quadrants of numbers. And through that, because those numbers are not tokenized, he's able to draw out information from data centers, for example, that uses none of the normal energy requirements. And he explained that to me, and I was like, whoa. So he's already figured it out. He's already figured out how you could take, say, a normal data center and get way more out of it with no extra energy. It just does it automatically. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is incredible. So, we're at the precipice of something incredible and great. We're also at the precipice of disaster, but good will prevail, and we'll get through it. And
since you're in these thoughts, have you heard or read about Law of One?
Yeah, the Law of One series, yes.
The Law of One is like it was basically, there were 3 people, and one of them was channeling this. And the woman who was channeling it took so much out of her physicality that she ended up getting super sick and she died. But if you start to read it, it resonates as truth. And it's, according to that, I mean, it's like 1,000 pages or something. But the very simple version is there are densities, and like stones and stuff like that is first density. Second density is animals, and then there are animals who are close to third density. Humans are third density beings, and the earth is third density. But according to to that text, the Earth is developing into fourth density, and that's why the Earth is also doing a shadow work on itself, and that's why we're going through these strange times. And we are also, if we are to develop into the fourth density, we also have to go through these times. But then there are like fourth density, fifth, sixth, and I think I'm right that basically the light becomes so strong that the evil cannot do anything else than obey at the seventh or eighth density. And I've never done the before, the 5MEO, but I feel like the people who get through when you describe it, it's like then you get a glimpse of when it all unites.
Yes, you
when
do.
When it all unites, and according to the text, there are beings or entities, like Jesus was maybe a fifth or sixth density entity here on the positive polarity.
Yeah.
But then you think about somebody like Bill Gates, or like, are they like fourth density beings who are just doing dark magic here?
They might be here to just, poke us and get us on the right track, right? This is that thing about the guardrails or the extremes of evil. What's it really doing? It's actually, what it's really doing is pointing your soul back into the middle. Like, hey, don't go this way, go that way, right? So it's actually developing you. That's the Steiner perspective. Steiner also has an interesting thing about these different densities. He has different names for them based on different terms for the angels and the hierarchy of angels. And, it's very arcane. It's not something I'm familiar with. He calls them the I'm trying to think of the terms for them, the Elohim and the this and the that, all these different terms, but it's similar. And then Robert Edward Grant also has shown that basically we're in a 12-dimensional system here. And there's basically base 10 and base 12 are two of the major number systems that are used in this dimension. And that's why you see with like carbon, for example, it's a 6, which is really a 12. And then you have nitrogen, which is a 5, which is really a 10. And that those two things are the basis of organic chemistry, right? Nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, that's the basis, for the whole thing. And those are base 10 and base 12. And he showed me that mathematically, which is, a little bit outside of my scope of being able to explain it. He can explain it very well. But
it's interesting to like even the DMT, it's like people all over the world are seeing the same beings.
Yeah.
These triangle elves.
Yeah, right,
and it's
exactly.
like, who are these beings?
This has been noted with ayahuasca since the very beginning that, how in the world can the Egyptian deities, for example, like Anubis and Osiris, be present inside of ayahuasca, and many people around the world having visions of Egyptian deities that have never talked to each other, had nothing to do with each other, don't even know anything about Egyptian deities, and yet they show up, or the panthers will show up, or, dancing people will show up, or, same motif in different people all over the world who never knew each other, never had any idea what ayahuasca was even about. And I did one time do I've done the toad medicine because I ran a hot springs out there where the toad is native to in eastern Arizona, central eastern Arizona.
What do you call toad?
That's the Bufos alvarius toad. And so there was, when I first came into contact, was running the hot springs, and we first came into contact with the native tradition of smoking the toad, I was scared. I mean, this is back in 1999. I had no real reference or knowledge of, like, I would watch people and I'd be like, oh my God, one day it's gonna be my turn. What the heck? And so soon, a few months later, it was like, okay, here you go. And I was like, this is gonna be crazy. Turned out it was the best thing ever.
You smoked it?
Yeah. I've smoked a toad over 50 times in my life, easily. I've did so in
20. But when you say best time ever, what did you?
Oh, I was taken to the angels. I was taken right to the angelic realms. And I've always been taken to the angelic realms with that particular medicine. I won't say that happens for everybody, but in my experience, it's always been an incredibly positive, very powerful, awesome experience. Not that you don't have, your butterflies before doing it, because you're going to be ejected out of your body, and it's going to be really full on.
But what about coming back to the body after it? Because I know also people who've had great experience, but then they have a hard time integrating it, and they might have even a harder time. It can be a little bit destabilizing.
Yes, and that's why you have to have the right shaman. That person has to be able to look at you, look at your history, and go, no, this isn't the right thing for you. It's too strong. The toad is the strongest of all. It's the strongest thing. It's Timothy Leary said this about the toad medicine. He said it's the furthest you can get into the bardo state, basically death, and still make it back to your body.
Yeah.
And when you do 100 milligram dose, so typically, historically, I'd done 20, 30, 40 milligram dosages, but at one
it
point,
micrograms or is it
milligrams.
milligrams?
It's milligrams of the toad venom dried.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks like a dried snot, kind of gross looking, and so I did a 100 milligram dose in 2015, and I got all the way to God. I got all the way to the source of creation. And that was like one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life, ever. It was after that, my whole thing about all kinds of things like that changed. I mean, it was like I didn't need to ever really do any of those things anymore ever again. I got all the way to the source.
Did you feel like you got anchored? Because what did you feel changed for you afterwards? And then you come back to your body and you're here again.
Yeah. I feel like my soul was blessed by having a direct experience of God.
Yeah.
That's not something you can ever pay for. It's crazy, actually, that ever even happened. I can't believe I was blessed with that experience. That's how it is. It's like a blessing on your soul that you, in your soul's journey. I'm a believer in reincarnation, not because I believe in it, because the evidence is behind it. The scientific evidence behind reincarnation is there and incredibly supported by Ian Stevenson. His student, I think, is John Tucker. I used to say Max Tucker, but I think his name is actually John Tucker. Dr. Brian Weiss, Rudolf Steiner. There's been many books and research studies on reincarnation. And sometimes when you go into the Bardo state with Toad, you see, your incarnational cycle. Somehow you know it. And then you get all the way, like in this case, I got all the way to God and I was like, oh my God, I got to the source of creation. And then, gradually fall back into your body, maybe after, it takes like 45 minutes if you go all the way there and come all the way back. And that was just one of the greatest things. It's one of the best things. Like, I feel blessed. Deeply.
I completely get what you're saying because it has happened to me, maybe not to this extent, but I have had experiences where I really felt like I was dead, like full on dead.
Yeah.
And in that experience, I felt the purest bliss I've ever felt. But then when you're getting a little bit back, am I just going to be here? And then there's a little bit of fear that kicks in. It's just like, I want to get back.
Go back there.
And when at least when that has happened to me, it has happened 2 or 3 times on like in nature on mushrooms. And when I've gotten back, that makes me just feel so grateful to be in a human body again. And it just makes me like, of course, we are here to experience everything. And if you're ethereal, maybe it might be more of a bliss, but we are here to experience all of it.
I completely
feel
the same
everything.
way. Yeah, that's it. It's this, we're in a material body to experience the physicality of this reality.
Yeah.
And so you stop, one of the things that these things can cure in you is your resistance to reality. Right? So a lot of people are resisting, they're fighting reality. They're fighting reality with escapism. They're trying to escape their life. They're fighting reality by trying to, win at how much money they're making or how many yachts they have or how many, how many mansions, which is really also, it's a form of escapism right? So it throws away all of the fight that's within us to fight against reality and you just accept reality. And what's that worth? Right? This is why these things are here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you can really get the message of them, it's that. You come into balance with why you're here and you're not in fear or chaos or confusion or fighting. And to me, that's one of the greatest. I mean, those experiences I would never trade for anything. So I am very thankful that I grew up in North America where there's, and the Americas where there's a preponderance. There's like 3 times as many psychoactive plants and substances in the Americas as there is in Asia, Africa, and Europe, which is so weird. Why is there more in the Americas? But there is. And of course, the toad is there.
Isn't it mostly like in Europe, there's a lot of psilocybin?
There's a lot of psilocybin.
And in Africa, there's iboga.
There's iboga.
Yeah.
Yep. And then in Asia, you're going to find it's just way more sparse, these kind of things. But it's a blessing that we were able to tap into them.
What about, you watched probably Interstellar, the movie.
Yeah, and okay.
Yeah,
Is that's McConaughey?
McConaughey.
Okay, yeah.
I watched it again the other day with a bit of a psychedelic lens and this dimension thing, and it's such a great movie because it has so many layers to it and so many details and stuff. And I just started to think about these, like even these entities that people see on DMT. It seems to at least. I always get back the bigger the experience, the more when I come back, I'm like, what the hell do I know? This is all so big. But what it seems to establish is there are dimensions. There are other dimensions for sure. And then now there's a lot of talk. There are people who are really deep into UFOs.
Yes.
And all of a sudden there's like, on governmental websites in the US, there's all of a sudden a new UFO tab, and they're starting to release documents. And then, of course, the conspiracy theorist in me is like, okay, now they're trying to control the narrative because something might be about to happen, and they want to brainwash us first.
Right.
So that when it actually happens, we have already been conditioned into believing a wrong story about it. and
I
like
love it. You truly are. You have evolved into a conspiracy theorist.
And the funniest version, which I would be like, I will both be super sad, but I'll also laugh if there's going to be like there's a pending alien invasion, and now we need to get into a one world government where it's like, oh my God, don't try to sell me that bullshit.
The original time I first heard that idea was Bill Cooper. He wrote a very famous book called Behold a Pale Horse, and his conclusion was that was the final move of the maniacs who are running the world is a fake alien invasion. But I think most of the long-term researchers into this stuff are, don't think it's some green man that is coming from that planet over there. It's an interdimensional phenomenon.
Exactly. That's what I was about to ask you. What's your take on it? My take has recently become like, are these entities or interdimensional entities, and they've always been here, but we haven't developed the frequency to perceive them?
Yes, I think
instead of it being like there's a spaceship coming here with green guys and blah blah blah, and they are dangerous or whatever. For some reason, I never believed that. I never believed it was like little green man came from planet X over there, over to here. It just that seemed to be too superficial. Right. And, Rudolf Steiner has a great phrase. He says, nothing in this world is superficial. Nothing. And so this idea, like a little green man gets in a spaceship and comes over here, is like, there's no way that's what it is. But then, Jacques Vallée and his incredible research on the subject, it's like, this guy's been at it for 50 years. He's like, it's an interdimensional phenomenon. And then when you look at some of these things that have been filmed, it looks like an interdimensional phenomenon. So are they, higher dimensional beings tunneling in here? Yeah. Have they always been here? Probably. Are they part of this reality? Yeah, probably. Just all of that is so fascinating to me. Just fascinating. It is fascinating. And all of my intuition is telling me, like, if there would be some sort of a governmental narrative that would be like, now we need to unite the armies and stuff. It's like, okay, if these beings have this advanced technology and they would want us dead, they would already have killed us a long time ago.
Long time ago, for
so it
sure.
doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So all of my intuition tells me rather that it is possible when the nuclear things have gotten bad, like in the Cold War, that there was an intervention.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's entirely possible.
There's evidence of that, what you just said. There's evidence of an intervention of interdimensional beings into nuclear power, nuclear weapons, all kinds of things. I think nuclear weapons are misunderstood. I think the most dangerous part about nuclear weapon is spraying nuclear debris everywhere, like plutonium and polonium, really dangerous stuff, rather than the explosive power, right? The explosive powers, I think, has been exaggerated. Mm-hmm. I think the most dangerous part is just the nuclear waste and the contamination. So, when you put all that together, you realize, okay, we're probably in some kind of a petri dish. That also has come to mind many times where it's like, they're like watching us, they're doing experiments on us, they're checking us out and going like, what's happening? These people are crazy. Look at this. They're trying this. And every now and then they have to kind of intervene and be like, you better stop this.
Exactly.
It's that. Exactly. There's definitely evidence of that too.
Exactly.
That we're in a petri dish of some sort. When you blow through the dimensions on DMT, sometimes you get that feeling that they're in some other dimension above us. And so when you pass through those dimensions, you're like, Look at all, what are those beings? Who are they? And then you go, bam, 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 you bust through. And then eventually, if you go all the way, you get all the way to the source of creation.
Exactly.
Which was what you beautifully described as kind of that, where it all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one of my friends described very similar experience as you had on what you call the toad, which is the Bufo or now 5-MeO. He said, like, I smoked it inhaled a lot, lied down, and it's like, and all of a sudden, like, and now it's just God looking at everything like this, and then go back. And
yeah.
They call it the non-duality state, where everything becomes the source of creation.
Yes, you're so far. I mean, just for everybody who's never had that kind of experience, you don't know who you are. You were never a being. You're not. It's like that. You're just a point of awareness. You don't remember you're human. You don't have any idea of a name. It's like that, and then you come to a place of where you're with God, and there's no duality. There's none of that. That's way down the chain.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not even close to anything like that.
It's like a pure consciousness type of experience.
And you're at the source, like what I got from it is like, oh, this is the source of creation. Like,
yeah. I had a guy on my podcast who was he's the guy who brought ayahuasca to Iceland.
Okay.
He's very, very versed and experienced in these things. And I loved how he was experiencing, like, his biggest psychedelic journey, which I think was on ayahuasca maybe. And he said, like, I became the Big Bang. And I experienced the Big Bang, like it's this thing of Big Bang being the world expanding endlessly. And as I understand it, like then I came back and I'm like, I am still the Big Bang manifesting itself. It's so crazy to go into these things.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, ultimately it beats probably the actual spaceships by far.
I think so, yeah.
You're right. It's like,
so, yeah.
You don't need that technology. The technology is provided, right? As part of the earth. It's just, we were given it as part of the earth. But for whatever reason, people need to build these ships and these, whatever the U.S. military has created out of what the wreckage of interdimensional craft that they've found. And okay, and I think that stuff is really interesting. Some of the stuff that's leaked out about that, right? Which is these craft they're not running on fuel. They're free energy devices. Mm-hmm. And ultimately that's another thing, by the way, in terms of like what would save us, free energy devices would save us. And when I say free energy, people are like, oh, that's against, the rules. And it's like, well, who made up those rules? It's all human stuff. It has nothing to do with reality. There's so many things over the years that I've come across that are, like a turbine is a free energy device, because the wind will never stop. Mm-hmm. It's just taking advantage of what's already there. It's not, maybe one way is saying it's free energy, but another way is just saying you just develop a technology that just takes advantage of what's already there.
Exactly.
Exactly. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm thinking about taking a quick pee.
Okay.
But we are almost to the end.
Okay, good.
You can talk to the people if you want.
All right. So I usually go by David Avocado Wolfe, and everybody asks me, where does the avocado come from? So I'm originally from New York, New Jersey, but in the mid-1970s when I was a little kid, we started coming to my uncle's ranch on the border of Mexico on the San Diego side and the U.S. side. And we started growing avocado and citrus and mulberry trees and pomegranates and all kinds of different plants, cedar trees, and wonderful different types of lemons and limes and oranges, blood oranges, and everything. But I started grafting and growing avocados and citrus back then when I was 8 years old, and have stayed with it. Now today I grow in Hawaii cacao, avocados, a huge amount of noni, mangoes, papaya, all the favorites, all the things, Rollinia, and all the great tropical fruits. I'm trying to think of some of the ones you probably would love, that we grow. We grow jackfruit, ulu, which is breadfruit, probably about 40 or 50 different major trees, food trees. We grow mulberries also in Hawaii, interestingly. Mulberry, by the way, is one of the most genetically complex organisms on Earth. Mulberry can have up to 308 chromosomes, and I think that has something to do with its adaptability to almost every ecosystem on Earth. I mean, you could probably grow mulberries right here in Iceland. I'm sure somebody is.
Probably.
But you can grow them in Hawaii, which is crazy, that it has that level of what it can handle. Anyway, so I was just saying about my name avocado because people are like, why do you have the name avocado? It's because I've been an avocado grower since I was 8 years old. So that's it's getting close to 50 years. Think of how crazy that is that I've been at it. And also citrus. I love growing citrus trees, and we grow a lot of Suriname cherry. I grow a lot of berries. I also have a farm in Canada, so we grow a lot of different berries and apples and pears and walnuts, but mostly berries. Sea buckthorn berries. We grow aronia berries. We grow blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, yellow raspberries, sea buckthorn berries, and josta berries, gooseberries. A lot of different ones, and mulberries.
If we go a little bit, I want to continue a little bit in what we were, but before that, since you're talking about berries and avocados, when it comes to health,
yes,
I asked you what's non-negotiable for you now, and you said the charcoal.
Yes.
Is it because in the modern world we are so detoxed?
Yes,
we're so toxic.
We're so toxic. So eventually, what happened was I had a friend of mine who's an Olympic trainer, and she was telling me about the carbon-60 molecule and the research in carbon-60. This is back about 2015. And so this was a groundbreaking research on rodents and extending lifespan. And then I started looking into the carbon-60 molecule, and I realized, this is just a type of charcoal. It's like a fraction of all charcoal has these fullerenes in it, and they can be concentrated, and they are definitely more prevalent where, for example, a tree was struck by lightning. It's going to have more fullerenes in it than a tree that was just burned by a fire. So I started looking into how do we make this stuff, how does it appear in nature, all these things. And eventually I realized that I need to look into charcoal for longevity because the carbon-60 being that fraction of charcoal is really looking promising. And then I got all the books on charcoal and all the things that were out there on the internet. And then I found out that charcoal is by far the most complete and the most powerful and the most universal binder of toxins there is. And it can be standardized so we know we're going to get this result if we take that much.
But if people would like to apply that should you start slowly?
Yes.
And should you do it in the morning? And if I'm correct, you should not do it around taking medications or eating food, right?
Yes.
Unless you're using it if there was something toxic in your food or something.
Yeah, if you've been poisoned, since 1960 in the Western world from the great research paper called The Black Bottle by Hult, that basically popularized using charcoal in all hospitals in the Western world for poisoning and drug overdoses. And if you can get to the person within 2 hours, usually the charcoal will neutralize 100% of the problem. It's still used for drug addicts when people come in, let's say they've overdosed on drugs or alcohol too. You can have them drink a charcoal water, and that is one of the best things you can to sober them up. So it can be used for acute things like that, but we're under long-term poisoning.
Exactly.
It's not, we've been breathing an automobile exhaust all our lives, industrial pollutants all our lives. God knows what we've been sprayed with. God knows what's going on at airports. There's so much of it. So eventually from the books, I realized I need to get consistent about this. I had read accounts, for example, I remember one account of a camel crossing Australia, and this camel had eaten a toxic plant, and everybody was like, the camel's going to die, and this guy's like, nope, I'm going to feed this thing charcoal, and sure enough, 15 days later, 18 days later, 20 days later, the camel's fine. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. This guy just kept feeding that animal charcoal, and eventually it detoxified even the most dangerous poisons.
Because people are taking a lot of supplements, but if you're taking supplements on an already overtaxed system,
yes,
where your digestion is bad, you're really toxic, stuff like that, then maybe you should start with detoxifying.
It's way more important, actually. So I learned as a nutritionist, once you're our age, you don't need more nutrients. You're good. I mean, you have so many reserves. Think of all the food you've eaten in your life. We're not anywhere near close to starving. We have plenty of reserves. There's two things I want to say. One is charcoal has never been shown to interfere with healthy nutrients. like B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium. Nothing, it doesn't interfere with those things. It does interfere with recreational drugs, so it will neutralize cocaine, it will neutralize amphetamines, it will neutralize cannabis, it will neutralize all kinds of drugs and alcohol and all the synthetic drugs. And it can neutralize thyroid medication, so you have to separate it out. Like I'd recommend if people who use thyroid medication typically take it in the morning. So you're going to take your thyroid medication in the morning, then you're going to take your charcoal in the evening. In that case, for people like us,
isn't it like a general rule that you should keep it within an hour, or it has to be more than an hour?
The hospitals say more than 2 hours.
Okay.
I'd say, if you can keep it longer than 4 hours is really better, is really ideal. But generally, the hospital logic on charcoal is 2 hours.
So it can also be good to take it in the evening.
Yes, absolutely. And that's more appropriate for some people because they need to calm their system down. And sometimes it's not just toxins from the environment, it's also metabolic toxins.
What about if you take it in the evening? Because don't you have to drink a bit of water with it?
It's better to drink water with it because charcoal is drying. And so generally what I recommend, because people ask me how much, you should take at least one 400 milligram capsule per day. One 400 milligram capsule per day. And that's just to deal with the toxic load of every day plus our past.
What would you recommend if people like I've been doing it since I met you? I have taken periods in the past where I've taken charcoal, but then it's been laying a little bit now. I didn't put any emphasis on it. I met you and I was like, okay, let's do it. And I have like a 280 or 300 milligram pill, and I take 2 of them in the morning now.
Good.
Like 500-600 milligrams.
Excellent.
Would you recommend me upping the dose once I get used to the initial dose?
Yep. Like for me personally, I will take 5, 6, 7, or 8 400 milligram capsules.
Okay.
Of my coal biter. That's my because I do it in a 400 milligram size. So I will take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 personally. If I'm really going hard, let's say I'm, throwing an event and I'm doing a weekend event and I'm up all night and then up early in the morning, that kind of thing, I might take 10, 11, 12, 13 capsules of my coal biter charcoal because that will also activate you to wake up quicker and clean your blood out, because what's really happening with charcoal is the charcoal is acting as an assistant to your filtration organs. So your liver, your kidneys, your spleen, your skin are filtration organs. And they're burdened by the society and the food, and also metabolism too. That's another thing. It's like we're not just dealing with environmental toxins. It's also been shown that charcoal cleans up metabolic toxins so that you recover more quickly. You have less sore muscles. You have less soreness in your body. Like I'm never sore ever. Doesn't matter.
But if you're looking at it for that purpose, would you then take it at night?
Sometimes I would take it at night. Let's say I'm going hard. Like, I was thinking about, we did this wonderful event in March. And so we did the event all day, and then all night we went to my friend's restaurant and we played in the band. I'm a drummer, so playing in the band, 4-hour sets. And then I got to go sleep for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I got to do it all over again, 4 days in a row. That's a lot. On those days, I will usually take like 5 before I go to bed, then get up in the morning and drink more, but my body's used to it. I've been doing this for years. I would say this is that eventually you start to notice that it adds up. And for example, that whole thing, like I'm never sore ever. I don't have sore muscles ever. People are like, I'm 55 years old. I don't have sore muscles ever. I just went and hiked all over mountains. I was just swimming, jumping, all kinds of stuff. I didn't have any sore muscles.
People with a conventional worldview, they would not relate soreness to a lack of detoxing.
Right. Yes.
But would you say, for example, like if people are stiff and sore, would you say things like infrared sauna, charcoal, stuff like that can be actually the most important thing?
It's been proven. It's not only the most important thing, it's been proven to work. And so this is why, this is another reason why I love Iceland so much. Icelanders love their sauna. They love the cold plunging. And that's what that is. You're expanding, then you go cold, contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Expand, contract. That's a sponge. You're getting sponged out. You're getting squished out. Also, the word, this is another thing. We haven't hit this yet. So years ago, I was in Iceland. I was talking to our friend Helgi, and and he was talking about, have you read, because I was talking to him about charcoal. I was like, are you on charcoal? He's like, no, but I know about charcoal from the sagas. And I was like, what do you mean in the sagas? And he's like, there's a whole section on the coal biter in the sagas, the Icelandic sagas. So I dug it out in the sagas. It's Kohlbitr, the coal biter, which is a Scandinavian Icelandic mythology about the child who was the runt of the litter, or the least capable of dealing with the snow and the sleet and the animals and the sheep, and had to basically keep the home when the father was out with the other kids. And the mother was out dealing with what she had to deal with. The kid, the 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, up to 14, 7 to 14, would stay home and tend the home fire and then eat the charcoal, the birch charcoal and the willow charcoal at the perimeter, and would be transformed to the healthiest, most capable, most resilient child. And that kid was called the coal biter. Kohlbitr. And that was so prevalent in Scandinavian mythology, even it's in the sagas, that J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis back over there in Oxford in the UK, they named their club the Coal Biters, the charcoal eaters. It's a symbol of transformation. So let's say somebody's stuck in their lives. They want to transform their lives. They don't like the direction it's going. Start eating charcoal. Start eating charcoal and watch what happens.
Would you recommend, is there something also extra about, like I did a great sauna session yesterday. There, all of a sudden now in Iceland, there's like these, it's called travel saunas, where they have these wagons by the ocean.
Yeah.
And you do like 3 rounds where there's a person keeping the heat stable all over the room, and there's just music, maybe some essential oils, birds, stuff like that, and then you go into the sea in between. It's super great. But isn't there some extra benefit also to the infrared?
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. We have near, middle, and far infrared. And there had been a lot of emphasis on middle and far infrared, but the sun produces at least 70% of its energy in the near infrared. So as it turns out, actually near infrared is really the best. The sauna that's producing the most near infrared is going to give you the best results. It's going to mobilize those toxins. Those toxins are going to be able to be driven out of at least about 10 centimeters out of your tissue. So, that's all the way through your tissue. 10 centimeters is quite a bit of distance. And therefore, your focus with infrared saunas should be 70% near, some mid, and some far.
Have you looked that all into like the general, like for example, in the spas here and the gyms and stuff where they have infrared sauna? They only just say infrared sauna. You don't know anything about what type it is.
It doesn't have enough near.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
They're good, but it doesn't have enough near. When you get near infrared, you know it because you're heated up at the core of your body. And so when you get in that cold water, you need that cold water. You know, sometimes you can be in a sauna, but you're still looking at the cold water. You're like, oh man, it's going to be cold. Yeah. When you get enough near infrared, you're not cold. You want to get in that water because you're heated up from the inside out.
Yeah.
This is why, by the way, when we look at people like, let's say you go to Greece, you see people who are tan, the Greeks, they're getting a lot of near infrared, and it's something you can tell they're healthier because of it. Near infrared makes you healthier. It is the best thing to get aluminum out, for example.
What about just staying directly in the sun then?
Very good. Excellent. Yeah. If you can get the near infrared from the sun and get to a point of sweating, then go into the sea, great.
That's what I do always when I'm in Zanzibar, for example.
Yeah, that's what you need.
I stay barefoot most of the time. I stay shirtless most of the time. And then I take dips in the ocean probably 3 times a day.
Yeah, that's it.
And I can just feel my hormonal system and everything. It takes a bit of like the first days, especially like now, I've been in Iceland the whole winter. It takes a bit of, like you might get a little bit of a detox effect in the beginning from the sun if you haven't been used to it. But then your whole system just says yes to this.
It adapts to it, yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking about, like with the importance of intuition. Like another matrix thing is like this almost telling people like the sun is dangerous, and if you're in the sun, let's put all this white thing on your skin. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
That stuff, the latest research on that stuff. I mean, I just saw this last night on my social media. It was like 269% increase in this type of cancer, 130% increase in that type of cancer, 108%. I mean, it was like that. And I was like, wow. I have naturally dark skin. My mom's Persian, so I naturally have always had pretty dark skin. I never bought into the skin cream, skin lotion, sunscreen idea. I just always thought that doesn't make any sense. It always looked toxic. And I
have a stick to put on my nose if I'm like in the ocean for a long time and stuff. That's it.
The one that works, by the way, and it's probably what your stick is, the one that I do recommend is the original, the OG, as we say, is zinc oxide. Mm-hmm. Zinc oxide protects you from the sun and is actually safe. That's what lifeguards have always used. That's the white stuff you see on the nose. Mm-hmm. That will prevent the skin cancer also. So if you're going to use something and you have fair skin, zinc oxide. Go back to the basics.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
What about, I was going to go back to a little bit in the end, what we were talking about earlier. Where do you see it heading? Like a lot of, I know it's like a typical thing in a spiritual community and just prophets and stuff like that. It's like we are in a very turbulent and interesting times now and something is about to happen. But there seems to be a lot it seems to me that from now until 2030, it's not just going to be status quo. Things are getting more intense, and we are going to see really interesting things, I think. Even with the UFOs we were talking about earlier, who knows? Like, is something happening there in the next, even this year or next year? What's your take on it?
Well, as far as I can tell, this astrological cycle that we're in,
even with the governments also, like in Trump, and like there are interesting things happening.
This is the most interesting time to be alive. We have to really look at it from that way. I mean, sure, there'll be a lot of evil. Yep. There's going to be an incredible amount of good. Yes, for sure. But this cycle that we're in, this astrological cycle, it comes to a conclusion like right at the end of 2031, something like that. And so we're going to see some chaos, wild things ahead, especially 2027. 2028. It's exciting. It's scary, but it's also exciting. And then if we look at like I'm thinking of Jason Breshears, and he's one of the big conspiracy theorists online, a chronologist. He says everything's going to really come to a head in 2040 and 2046. Those are his key dates, and he has his reasons for thinking that. So I look at all that and I'm like, wow, this is right in the middle of our lives. This is like right when it's all happening. So my recommendation is stay out of trouble, like in the sense of like you don't want to be in Lebanon right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to be in Tehran right now. You got to get away from places that are targets like that. You don't want to be in Tel Aviv right now. These places are targets. Mm-hmm. So you want to, be smart in that way. Do healthy things so you extend your lifespan. And the best thing, the simplest thing, the most universal thing is charcoal. It's the simplest solution to longevity there is. And it takes care of all the chaos, right? If you name uranium is detoxified by charcoal. You name any pharmaceutical drug or anything somebody's OD'd on or perchlorate from exhaust from airplanes, all detoxified by charcoal. It's simple. And so we want to get into a position where we're set up for longevity. You want to do your swimming every day. You want to do your sauna every day. You want to get that near infrared. You want to get your sun every day. Basics like that. Mm-hmm. You want to get your barefoot on as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And then what you're really preparing to do is you're preparing for whatever the showdown is going to be. Yeah. You're ready. And so that's why it's important to be healthy.
Yeah, that's always my conclusion too. Like the more turbulent things get, you have this one container that's your human body. And something tells me that if there ever was a time to attend to your body, attend to your containers, and take time to withdraw and go inward, take time to go into nature, I think that's now for sure.
This is now. And by the way, what an important thing is, I recommend when people come join us on a detox, for example, I'm like, okay, the first week, you got to get 1 measured hour in nature, no phone. Get electronics off of you, and you got to be in 1 hour in nature. The next week, 2 hours.
Exactly.
And it's got to be measured. It can't be like, oh, well, I'll, 90 minutes. Nope, 2 hours. The third week they're with us, 3 hours. Because the fractal patterns of nature, the energies of the trees, the energies of the rocks, the importance of being able to be in the waters of nature, the sea and the rivers and the hot springs, is you cannot, there's nothing on a screen that's going to be as good. There's nothing in your home that's going to be as good. We need those things to be healthy.
Yeah, like I really think like the pulling power with these devices. Like I took a period in 2017 where I actually went for a pilgrimage walk alone for like 11 days, and I left the smartphone at home. And it was so interesting. Like
Thank God.
The withdrawals in the first days.
Wow.
But on the airplane on the way back, I sat down, I started to read a book, and the whole 4-hour flight, I had full concentration, reading a book the whole flight, each and every minute. And I was looking around a little bit. I saw the people there, how lethargic they were. And I was just like, this is what it is to have a brain. And then I took 5 months away from smartphones, which was very interesting, just to see how everybody around you, but that was 2017.
Wow.
Now it's become so much worse.
And
I did a phone fast. I set out to do like a 48-hour phone fast. I did a 40-hour the other day, but I set out to do a 48-hour like a half a year ago. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave it in the drawer at home and go. Like I went to my car, drove downtown. It was not even 9 o'clock. It was 8:30 in the morning or something. First thing, the parking lot, I can't pay.
Wow.
I don't have the app.
Right.
Okay, I'll take the ticket. Go to my workplace, can't get inside. I need a membership card through my phone. So I ended up going to a coffee shop on the other side of the road. They called the place, so they got to open. And I was just like, it's not only 9 o'clock. It's not even 9 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa.
And this is how much they have made my life so interwoven with this thing that I can't be without it.
Wow.
And it was just like, it was mind-blowing. And then you have these parents who are in these Facebook groups where everything is going and you're losing out on everything.
It's heavy.
It is interesting.
It's interesting.
So everything in me tells me what you're saying. Like the antidote to the modern world is to go offline in nature.
Yeah. And that's why you have to measure it. You have to say, okay, this week it's an hour every day, and you have to hold yourself to it. The second week, 2 hours, right? And you just leave the phone behind. Now, for me, I find because I have so much that I do online, that to leave the phone is easy for me because I can't stand looking at the screen because it hurts my eyes.
Yeah.
So that's where it's come to.
Yeah.
It's basically like, if I look at that screen, it's going to be pain. So I have to put it away. And that's just where we're at. Now, I assume and I hope that when we develop an integrous technology, a moral technology, an ethical technology, which is basically a technology that doesn't spy on your data. That's basically what it is. That's all it is. That we will have better quality screens that don't hurt our eyes, that are friendlier on our eyes, and other things. So,
yeah, I just think with talking about the positive, if you think about this pendulum and how you can go a full circle, like the AI can actually help us to be like, okay, I just feed you a little bit of information about myself. I have, I don't know, like quote unquote addictive patterns when it comes to these apps and this. I want to take this down. The screen should be good. And all of a sudden you have the possibility of just taking back control. I have a phone with a good screen. I'm not even allowed to certain apps until certain, and it's just, the AI can do it for me. They can just take control of it for me.
This is my take on it, because everyone is like, what's going to be in the future? And like, how are we going to deal with all the AI and everything? It's like, this is my take on it. This is what I think is what's coming. Every person, every device, you as a person will have your own AI that protects you.
Yeah.
It protects you from the hackers. It protects you from the surveillance state. It protects you from the data stealers, all the stuff. I think that's where it's going. And so as we see the development of more moral phones, phones that aren't built with all the spyware, and de-Googled phones and all that stuff, I think what's going to happen is there will be built-in AI that protects you.
I think so.
And it's already kind of there.
Yeah.
Like, if I have to protect myself from something, let's say it's bot scrapers. So this is solving my God. I realized that my websites are being scraped by bots massively. I mean, it was crazy. So I immediately went to work. I was like, what do I got to do about this? So how did I do that? I got the AI to help me. That's going to become more automatic. So the AI taught me, here's how you block these scrapers. Here's how you block this. Here's how you deal with this. And so basically what I'm using is an AI to fight the AI.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wild stuff.
It's been a beautiful talk.
Thanks, man.
Great to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Best ever.